Hi guys, it's me Suze, your holistic stylist, coming to you from the Third Cosmic Ray, St. Louis, Missouri, with my intro story into how I found out about homeopathy at the turn of last century and my journey with it ever since. So, as you can see here on the piano, we have some small bottles. And the brand name is so odd. It's Luty's. L-U-T-Y-I-E-S. And actually, 100 years ago, it was made here in my hometown of St. Louis. There was a terrible factory fire, is what the history of it is. And so from there, they moved to California. But my story goes back to my youngest son that was born in 2000. And when he was quite young, he had a terribly high fever. So, in this brand of nutrition, which is homeopathy, you use ferrous or iron phosphate as a remedy to alleviate the suffering and the actual high temperatures of fevers that can give one brain damage. This would be your biochemic first aid. It reduces fever, inflammation, swelling, and is just all around good. Actually, it's the one I specifically need for my astrological sign. But before we trip down too far the tunnel, let's go back to my son. So, he had 104 fever, and the directions would say 4 of these every 15 minutes for the first 2 hours. And of course, as I began to tell this story to my clientele, they said, "Oh my gosh, Susie, I can't believe I call myself Susie, that's funny, back to my old life." Anyhow, they said, "Well, aren't you afraid you're over-medicating your son?" And absolutely not. This is not medication. This is something we're going to discover has roots that goes back at least 2,000 years as we know of at this moment in our evolutionary process of unearthing our past true history. So this is complete and total cellular nutrition. You cannot overdose on it. It cannot interfere with any medications. It cannot bring anyone any harm. And this is so important today, current time, because of course they're trying to outlaw homeopathy. And we'll go into that little story a bit. Back in 1929, when they really wanted to push the sulfa drugs and this new incredible industrialized corporate business structure that we now live under, they said to the doctors at the hospitals, "If you guys want to keep using this stuff, you're not going to be able to work in the hospitals." And of course, a lot of them chose at that time to finish out their careers doing no harm to the people they love and actually calling on them in their homes, God bless them. So when we think back to our grandparents' stories of the doctors that actually came when the child had measles, guess what they gave them? Homeopathy. For inflammation and swelling, we're back to ferrous. There would also be a few other ones, but I just wanted to open our discourse today with that thought in mind. And I am coming to you on Independence Day. Earlier I had the closest thing I had on to patriotic, which was white shorts, blue t-shirt, and a red pendant. But I do appreciate our freedom and our freedom to learn and grow and actually seek out knowledge and learn how to take care of ourselves. All right. So, here's what's mind-blowing to me. I came across this, and we started using it in every aspect of our lives. So, with a little more research, we found out a lot about homeopathy, and surely it starts in the Bible. So, believe it or not, in the book of Genesis, it specifically refers to the 12 biochemic tissue salts. Praise God. I can't imagine how they could make something illegal that was in the Bible, and I'm not really sure what reality everybody's tuning in from. But here again, this is nutrition, and this is essential to keeping healthy. So I would hope that each one of you would research this a little farther, and we're going to go through a lot of things. And make sure that you have it on hand for your family and for your animals and for anybody else you love. So, we talked about the Bible. It's in the Bible. Now, Samuel Hannemann, a little difficult to say, is who goes down in the history books as the father of homeopathy. And the work was quite extensive for the physicians of that day. And remember, the people weren't so modernized either, so they actually knew a little easier if their head hurt here or if it hurt back here. And that's called an amelioration of a symptom. Sometimes people say have swelling in the summertime when it's hot, like right now. We would want one of the water distribution tissue salts, which are the gnats. They have a gnat group. So one restores water, one reduces excess water, and the other one distributes water to make sure it's not pooled in one particular place, like if you find that you have swelling in a joint, for example. Now, these tissue salts, the nutritional therapy we're discussing, are very, very, very fragile, and they have no coating because they're not a medication. So the first thing that we need to recognize is we never open this bottle around any pungent odors. So even if it's a beautiful aroma like aromatherapy, it could depotentize the bottle. So please don't open these, like say if you're in the kitchen and you're cooking with garlic or something like that. You understand now. And the proper way to use these and administer them to you or anyone else, so we're not cross-contaminating, is we would tap 4 or 5, which would be a dosage, into the lid, tilt our head up. I can't talk and do this at the same time, so I'm going to toss this under my tongue, and it's going to melt and absorb into my body. You know what they taste like? They taste like candy cigarettes. So, when my son was a toddler, he thought these were like candy, and he would go snatch them and hide behind the couch or the sofa or whatever, and down maybe 100 at a time. So like I said, please don't be worried about overdosing. And the most important thing that we should come to learn about homeopathy right here and right now is it's like any of the other sacred studies. If you know this much about it, it's going to help you this much, and it will never hurt you. The more that you know about the subject, the more it can help you. So, I love to create things that make it easier for people. And you know what was the most incredible thing is on my Facebook trek over this last year, I came across an incredible name, or an incredible man, and hopefully I can say his name, Santos Bonacci, and he would be Mr. Astrotheology. So I had seen several of his YouTubes, and here he was discussing where the tissue salts are in the Bible and how it correlates to the heavens and to our bodies. And if we can get the nutrition that all the cells in our body need. Believe it or not, it lights up all the electrological functionings of your physical body, all the fluids that are contained therein, your astral body. It's really one of the big keys. I can't say enough about it. It blows my mind. So anyhow, here's Santos with his discourse on it. And I felt compelled to make my own artwork to help my own clients, my own family, and my own friends. So we're going to be looking at this here shortly, but I want to also state real quick, the people that you want to call is 1-800-HOMEOPATHY, and that's HOMEOPATHY, homeopathy. And back in the early days, they had a small book, and it would have the amelioration of the symptoms contained. So for example, there were over 150 different kinds of headaches. So here's what we're talking about. Where is the pain located? Is it throbbing or pulsing, or does it feel like there's a vice grip around your head? And that took up several pages. And even my own self, I would watch myself and try to read these ameliorations of symptoms, and it drove me nuts because I had to go from page to page. Of all the ones, I didn't put the headache one on here, so I'm just going to show you the one for our breath and for breathing. And this would be all the ameliorations of symptoms. You can find these out there on the internet. It is on my Facebook. You have to forgive me, I know so little about this. And for those of you who know me, you understand that everything that I have come to do, it's been a direct link of telepathy, and it's also been an opening of my heart brain. So my job is to bring different groups of people together that would never come together, and it's also to share information and expose my personal story so people will believe it, and they will have them faith in themselves to know that whether or not they go to college and take a course on it, anything that you truly want to learn, you can. You have an incredible brain. It's just clogged up with a lot of false program stuff. So, you know, if you're already on medication, God love you, stay on it. We're not trying to ever talk anyone out of what they truly believe in, because placebo is up to 30% of your belief. So you can incorporate homeopathy right alongside a Western medication, and there will be no ill side effect. It will not depotentize your medication. If anything, everybody needs to get a good oxygen supply in their body. So that's fair foss, back to that. Okay, so alleviation of suffering. Now, sometimes when people are looking for a cure, they go to a healer, they think poof, like a puff of magic, that all their problems are going to go away. And that's why I always make very, very clear to speak the words alleviation of suffering. So, for example, this would be some of my suffering in the last couple weeks. On the summer solstice, I was lighting natural incense things so the mosquitoes wouldn't bite me. It just drives me nuts. And of course, when I was lighting them, that hot poke touched my arm. And you can see the burn was this big. There we go. I've circled it in a green marker to show you that now it's just a little itty bitty dot. And you can actually use these tissue salts on the outside of your skin to heal things up. And I'm going to go into that that's really a little bit more advanced training in my mind, and it will require another full-length video. I'm not going to tie too much of it up here, but just to give you the understanding that you can use them in so many ways to help those you love. They're very inexpensive too. $8.95 for 500 of these small nutritional blessings, let's say. So if we look back at this chart, okay, so I'm going to read these to you. Number 1 is calcium fluoride, and the old school word would include of lime. So when we were doing our research, of course, we inserted that in there because we really wanted to make this as complete and respectful of all the great people down through time that have put together these little bits and pieces. Then we have calcium phosphate, calcium sulfate. Now we all know how everybody, technically their bones are breaking, but they're over-calcified, and that's because they don't have enough magnesium or potassium, so they can't absorb their vitamins and minerals. So now maybe we see that by incorporating this, we can balance our body out. Then we have, of course, number 4, phosphate of iron, Phos, the one I've been in such high praise of. We have potassium chloride, potassium phosphate, potassium sulfate. So in this grouping, I guess the biggest difference to me would be potassium chloride, which is called Kali-Mur. That's the actual capital letter shortened technical name for this. So you'll actually come to learn 2 names that you don't know and a number. It's going to be easy. Well, the Kali-Mur you would take, say if you had any kind of excretion that was coming out of your nose. So say if you blow your nose and you're blowing out white, a little bit more white, mucusy kind of stuff, number 5 would be perfect. Number 7, which is Kali sulfate. Now, that one would be by the time that it's gone to a full-blown infection and you're blowing out yellow and green. Now, I'd like to stop right there and say to you guys that I have never had a sinus infection or a cold that was so torturous that I went into blowing green snot. You know, when you get sick, here's what you do. You immediately start treating with homeopathy. You don't wait till you're half dead. That's what traditional people do. And then by the time they get an appointment at the doctor, they just throw them an antibiotic or some kind of drug that doesn't work. You have to assess how you feel and begin immediate treatment, always with Phos. So, Kali-Phos, number 6, goes down in all provable, complete homeopathic journals as the tissue salt to help treat the children that they diagnose having a disease or a disorder like, hyperactive or bipolar or whatever words they have for it. And when we get into blood type, we're going to talk a little bit about why sometimes people get disorders that they name diseases. But we're in the homeopathy lesson right now. Mag-Phos is excellent for muscle pains. And then we have our 3 gnats. Like I said, the one for water distribution, the one for not enough water, and the one for too much water. And last but not least, one of my favorites as a holistic stylist is silica. And as most of the professionals know, that's one of the things that's really good for your hair, skin, and nails. So it's a natural beauty treatment. So is getting enough oxygen on the inside of your body, because then you look nicer on the outside. And when I do facials, I work with the tissue salts to alleviate the suffering of people, say, with rosacea, or the people with psoriasis, or the people with just downright nasty acne that they want to get rid of. We can do it so safely and simply. With that being said, I'm going to illustrate to you how to make a poultice now. It's very, very easy. Let me just grab some water. I have some water in a water bottle, and I have some tissue salts. Now you know. Oh, hey, I just called them tissue salts. Do you know I had someone a long time ago tell me they couldn't use them because they can't have extra salt in their diet? Oh my gosh, really? It is not salt. That is a technical word for what they use to describe minerals. So, I'm going to break my own rule now, and that's kind of like a lot of people think the customer's always right because they're handing me money, so I should agree with them. So what I'm going to tell you is the customer is usually right. And so if I have enough knowledge inside of myself to tell you there's 2 ways now to do this, because really, even the company that sells them has no information about how to use them on your skin, how to clean out a recluse bite, how to take care of a burn or a scrape or a cut or a wound. Now, I'm speaking as a sovereign individual, and I'm also speaking as a cosmetologist. And cosmetologists, believe it or not, are educated enough that when they get a license, it includes having the right to clean the skin. So now I ask you this. Do I need to call a phone number to ask someone what I should clean skin with, or should I pick a pretty advertisement out of a beauty magazine, or should I do my research? And that's why I have used these in my business. Oh, here's another way I use tissue salts. I use them on people's skin that is highly irritated after body waxing. So, if it is not going in my mouth, it can go into my hand. If it's going into my mouth, it has to go in the lid. And you say, well, why is that, Suze? I mean, that's silly. No, it's not really, because if you want full nutritional value, your body oils or germs or dirt or whatever is on your hand can depotentize the tissue salt. All I'm going to do is treat a wound. So, I can open the lid, I can tap out a few tissue salts into the lid, I can take the lid and dump the tissue salts into my hand, close the lid, usually doesn't take that long to close the lid, grab a little bit of water, dispense the water on top of the tissue salt, and you can see what's happening. They're melting just like that. So from there, I want to get it on this wound, right? Put it on my finger to dispense, put it on the wound. And now if this wound were still bleeding, or if it had any kind of infection, really, God bless us all, it would suck that toxin right out of there. It would also stop the bleeding. Another great reason to have this in your first aid kit. For example, one time, the love of my life, Joe, sliced his hand open with a circular saw when he was on the job doing his carpentry. And so when I saw him later on that day, he had cut from the thumb completely to the tip of the index. It was jig-jag, ripped open, like a shark tooth saw kind of a wound. I almost passed out, seriously. So what we did is we used a sterilized scissor to cut the dead skin off, because I don't care how many Band-Aids you put on it or how much Neosporin, you know that skin's not going to close back down nice, and it's going to give you some really nasty scar tissue. So you do have to cut that white dead skin off. So, and of course, as you all know, I am not a doctor. I am just a girl that has a true history of being a hairdresser. And did you know, back in the day, the hairdressers and the barbers were the surgeons that they praised. Then in another time in history, they were the bloodletters that they mocked. And I'm not even into bloodletting, but I'm just saying we're looking at a history here. During other times, hairdressers served royal families and met all their needs on a mind, body, spirit, and I would almost call it a grand servitude role of helping them in any way possible. So back to Joe's hand being laid open. We mixed up the poultice just like you saw right here, and we laid it into that cut. And then, you know, the lizard glue that they use to seal back up wounds, that's what we did. We closed him back up. And you know, he has no nerve damage. He can absolutely feel. He still works. And he has very, very little scar tissue. Before my father passed away, and my father was a diabetic who didn't think he had diabetes when he was on the low side of his weight swing, because of course he would go up and down. But in his last years, one time he came to the salon, and when he took his boot off and I saw his rotten leg, I just couldn't believe it. And I had seen wounds like that from brown recluse bites, and of course we all know what a nightmare that is. Someone gets bit by a brown recluse, and you know, they know they're hurting, but they can't do anything about it right away. Then they call the doctor, then they get the appointment. The doctor gives them antibiotics. They take the antibiotics, the swelling, you know, subsides a little, the itching, the heat, everything. And then when the antibiotic cycle is done, that rotting skin thing starts that we've all seen, where the hole kind of forms in the human being. Because when the recluse bites, believe it or not, imagine like a big nasty roasting bulb down there at the bottom of the bite where the cauldron of poison is. So people are treating exterior surface instead of drawing out the poison from its lowest depths, if that makes any sense. So, I thought my dad had recluse bites up and down his legs. Well, he was at the end of his life, and it was the diabetic neuropathy, rotting of his the tissues on his legs, you know, his skin tissue. And you know what? We blessed him. We cleaned his wounds. We tended to him with tissue salts. And he went on to live a few more years. And I would like to add at this point, too, everybody, that when you use these on open, gaping wounds and things that should burn, to say the least, there is no pain. So I could clean out a recluse bite with apple cider vinegar, which will burn, I promise. I could also clean out an apple cider vinegar, or I could also clean out a brown recluse bite with the magnesium oil. If you've seen that video, that's a superb cleanser. But my first choice is always tissue salts because there's no pain. So, I hope this expands your awareness and gets your curiosity up. These initial YouTubes that you guys are just starting to find with me, these are beginning and intro videos. So, for those of you that don't know, I opened my business when I was almost 21 years old, and of course that's been 30 years now. And so, in celebration of my 30 years in business of service to clients and my friends, I chose to throw up 30 basic YouTube informations before we start on private education or tutoring or getting classes together or webinars or seminars. So with that being said, namaste. I appreciate you guys and I appreciate your time and interest. So with that, peace, love, and light. See you soon. Bye.